would be nice to hear. And what is happening with our police? We're seeing people linked to the riots arrested and given lengthy sentences for shouting or for sharing social media posts. Obviously, physical violence is deplorable, as is inciting violence. But some of these headlines that I've seen over the past week are verging on the ridiculous. Rioter who shouted in a police dog's face, jailed for 20 months. I mean, blimey, you can get jail time for telling a police dog to get off the couch now. Man, 81, charged after city centre protest. I mean, British people have asked the government, can you do something to stop little kids being stabbed? And the government has said, the best thing I can do is lock up your granddad. A teenager who waved an England flag near North Yorkshire Islamic Centre jailed. I mean, it seems like the only flag you're not allowed to wave in England is the England flag. Loyalist D. Stitt arrested on return from Spanish family holiday over stop spread of evil Islam post. And I've seen that same sentiment expressed by feminist protesters in Iran, where the Islamic theocracy punishes them and forces them to cover up, and when they don't, they get attacked by the police and put in jail. And when people say the same thing in Iran, they get punished in a similar way with jail time. The police also seem to be revelling in the public humiliation of people suspected of taking part in the riots. This footage right now is from Merseyside police, who filmed the arrest of Thomas Whitehead as he stepped off the plane after his holiday for his involvement in the disorder in Southport. We can't afford extra police officers to investigate burglaries or women getting hit in the face in Nando's, apparently, but we can afford film crews. The police shared this man's street address, which seems unnecessary and almost dangerous in such a febrile atmosphere, with inflammatory hoaxes being spread, sometimes even by Labour MPs, telling Muslims that they're under attack from violent far-right thugs. With the husband in jail, who's there to protect his wife and children from any retribution? I mean, I believe that violence should be treated harshly, but waving a flag, shouting at a dog, an 81-year-old? This seems heavy-handed, Andrew. I mean, I'm concerned that due process isn't always being followed.
You're absolutely right. And go back to what I said beforehand. Trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback. Yeah. We need to look at this. Also, the media has a responsibility, because some of the headlines don't tell the full story. Yeah. So the thing about shouting at a police dog, I looked at this case, and actually it wasn't just shouting at a police dog. There was incitement, and there were basically abuse of other people at the scene, and so on and so forth. It's rather like saying the person was wearing trainers. We arrested them, they got 20 months for that. It wasn't. It was shouting at the police dog. They were also intimidating, incitement, and so on and so forth.
But then why
is
the shouting at a police dog, brought up in court? If why is that cited as a reason?
You're absolutely right, but it's the media focused on that, and this is my point on the report, is that in the media, we have a responsibility not to inflame the situation. There were all sorts of incidents which came up in the court, turning around and saying, this is what this particular person was accused of. They should have said it was about this sort of stuff, intimidation of individuals. The fact that they cited the police dog and that sort of thing.
When you say intimidation, I don't always trust that phrase. I mean, I've seen some of the phrases they've said. Like they said somebody, a Sellafield worker, was sharing racially insightful or inflammatory posts, and they seem pretty tame to me.
I mean, to be honest, I understand that the police have to get things under control, but there's no space in the jails at the moment. There's no prison space. Yeah. So what are you going to do? Start letting out paedophiles and murderers?
That's exactly what they're doing.
To make space for these people. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't have the space in prison, so we need to kind of realise that certain sentences don't make sense because we have nowhere to put them.
Yeah. Well, they have this strange thing now. They're saying one in, one out, and exactly as you said, they're turning around and saying, well, as soon as somebody's there, we're going to put all these people in.
The two crimes don't match.
No,
okay?
you're absolutely right.
It doesn't make sense. You can't justify that as well, because it doesn't make sense if somebody has committed a serious crime.
Yes.
And obviously they want to get control of the riots. Those are two very different things.
And it's one of the reasons they started televising the sentencing of criminals, so people understand the justice system. Yes. And as I say, it's a normal tariff. There's a sentencing council.
We want to prevent people from rioting and causing mayhem and chaos, but we can't give the same sentence or even more for somebody who stabbed a child.
You're absolutely right.
To me, just doesn't make logical sense.
And that's why they're televising it, because they turn the sentencing council make it a science to say these are the penalties. Yeah. You get, if it's aggravating, you get more. Yeah. If there's mitigation, you get less.
People that have committed serious murders and crimes and are still waiting to be sentenced, and those people are going far up the list just because they caused, obviously, mayhem and chaos. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we've got to see where priorities lie.
The priority must be in communication, because if you tell people about it, it makes it much easier.
And for the police to be filming it and posting it on social media. Almost, it's got the feel of a communist show trial.
It's crazy.
Humiliation as well.
And they've gone to the other extreme. So what's happened now? They get criticised for this, so we're going to act really quickly on this.
Yeah.
And actually, all that does is accentuate, well, you didn't do anything here.
Yeah.
And you're continuing not to do things on this. You need to apply universality on that sort of principle. Justice is blind, it doesn't matter. That's what's supposed to happen accordingly. Be very logical and communicate what you're doing.
Yeah.
And Sky journalist Martin Brunt revealed how the people arrested and thrown in jail could have a target on their backs as well. Take a look at this.
And people are being told that if they do appear, whether they're pleading guilty or not guilty, they're very unlikely to get bail. And if they do end up in prison, somebody who told me, somebody who knows about these things, told me that, you know, any right-wing, far-right protester landing up in jail, well, you know, they can expect a pretty cold reception from what he says are Asian gangs inside prison who will be looking out for them.
That's chilling stuff. Now, I've been reliably informed that there is no two-tier policing. So when are Nick Lowles of Hope Not Hate and another MP who shared his post going to be arrested for sharing this inflammatory, dangerous hoax that far-right thugs were throwing acid at Muslim women? This was also shared by Labour MP Josh Fenton Glynn. The police had to step in to deny that this had happened. But astonishingly, Nick Lowles didn't delete this inflammatory claim. Now, is it unfair that people on the far left, such as Nick Lowles, aren't being prosecuted?
Well, I think we have to be mindful. I always say this. I think when you have a very large following online, you have to be very mindful of what you put out there. You can't just start putting stuff that you think may have happened. You have to have real evidence behind it. And that's a serious thing to say.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's enough space in prison, as I said, for him to be sentenced, but he should definitely have some repercussions for what he's done.
I'd be happy to let pretty much anyone out.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Well, Andrew, also, the thing with Nick, because he's a government advisor, he's part of this charity, Hope Not Hate, who pretend to be, you know, anti-fascist and pretend to be, in reality, they're going after reform candidates.
You're absolutely right.
But because, you know, they've got the ear of the government, they're seen as more credible than, you know, some nutter.
It is absolutely scandalous in the same way as you talk about an abuse of a position. And you must remember that the murder of the 3 girls and the riots that happened as a result of it was spread as a result of misinformation. So when there's misinformation that causes these riots, already a tinderbox.
Were also spread by just the information, just the fact that these girls had been killed and other girls had been targeted. I think
and consistently have been so after this.
Absolutely.
Women and children are getting stabbed pretty much every day.
And we just saw yesterday at the Diversity Festival in Germany another spate of stabbing.
And it is awful. And it's inflammatory. So what's happening, that's why I would say the responsibility in the media as well, across the board, is to try and shine more light and less heat on this. Because it is appalling what's going on. It's a tinderbox at the moment, and lots of divisions are spilling out accordingly.
But we also need to make sure that the public do have awareness, and we need to have knowledge, but correct information.
And get rid of the fear. Get rid of the fear on the streets. People are scared.
I think people need to be fearful until the government deals with it.
And as a woman, I am extremely uncomfortable at certain parts of, you know, London, and when I go out, and I have to be very mindful of where I go.
Absolutely.
Because people target young women like me, children. We're just getting stabbed every single part of the UK at the moment.
It is appalling.
It's devastating.
And you're so right, Precious. And what people need to do is the police need to act very, very quickly. They need to deal with the real troublemakers, because actually we're a really wonderful society. Let's get back to the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has never been more divided.
Well, anyway, there was some good news for fans of free speech and free thought this week. A Christian charity volunteer was awarded £13,000 compensation and an apology from police after being arrested for praying silently outside an abortion clinic. That's right, silently praying. She was arrested for thinking the wrong thoughts in her own mind. Here's some footage of her arrest.
That's what you stood. Is you standing to be part of the protest?
No. I'm not protesting.
Are you praying?
I might be praying in my head.
So I'll ask you once more, will you voluntarily come with us now to the police station for me to ask you some questions about today and other days where there are allegations that you've broken public space of protection?
If I've got a choice, then no.
OK, well then you're under arrest on suspicion of failing to comply.
I suppose she could have avoided arrest by lying to the police that she was just thinking about what she was going to have for dinner. But I guess a good Christian doesn't want to lie to the police like that. Despite West Midlands police giving her thousands of pounds to settle her claim for 2 wrongful arrests and false imprisonments and for a breach of her human rights, the government is still considering banning silent prayer outside abortion clinics. Now, I believe that women should have access to abortion, but I also think that people should be allowed to think what they want in their own heads. Call me controversial. Precious, I heard you saying that you found her annoying.
No, honestly, I thought that was a really annoying thing to do. How dare she stand outside?
People for being annoying.
No, seriously, that's intimidation. She is trying to intimidate those. No, she's trying to stop people. Do you know, as a woman, what it must take for that individual to walk into a place like that?
Are you saying I'm not a woman?
Leo, listen, honestly, you don't know what it takes for a woman to go into a place like that and to have that woman standing outside with all her judgment and all her, this is bad and against my religion.
But it is bad.
It's not.
No, I'm sorry, but
I
think women should have access to it.
She should definitely have a choice.
But we can't pretend that it's like some wonderful thing, and we can't pretend that everybody's going to think it's wonderful.
Leo, let me say this. I'm not saying for women to use it as a form of contraception, but if they need it, they should be able to go in there without judgment of somebody standing outside trying to intimidate them and just being very annoying.
And I think so Precious makes a brilliant point, and we're conflating 2 different arguments. You're absolutely right. People should not. They go horrendous situations where people find themselves in those clinics.
Exactly.
What this was a ban on protests within a certain radius. So it wasn't the headline that everybody wants, this is about thought. This is what they said. They asked her, is this a protest? And if it were a protest, she would be in breach of the ban, which is why they went for her.
How can it be a protest? She'd be standing doing nothing.
Saying that she's got a history of this, apparently. A history of protest, exactly.
Leo, she was doing it pretty much every day. She didn't just stop by and went, let me just hang out here.
She's got a hobby.
She did it every single day for however long.
And that was the reason, Precious is quite right, that's the reason for banning people from being certain clothes. That's the perspective. The danger, however, is my mate Elon Musk, I had him, his father was on my show yesterday. Fantastic stuff. Great show. It was amazing. Have a look. Available on YouTube. Watch carefully, though, because Neuralink is the new thing that Elon's doing, which effectively you have something put in your brain, telepathy. So if you start arresting people for the thoughts, I know what you're thinking now, I will shut up. But if you start arresting for them, this is such a slippery slope, and we have to call it out.
Yeah, and also, for a slippery slope, I think we're nearly at the bottom.